Hey guys, so you can tell from the title of this video that yes, I had a miscarriage. It happened at 10 weeks pregnant, and I did a video on the day of my ultrasound where I found out about, where I found out that the baby had no heartbeat, and that video, I don't know if I have too many emotions showing in that video because I feel like I was kind of like, I don't know, if you watch it you'll see I kind of look like dead in the face. But it did help to make that video and kind of get those feelings, or at least what was going through my head, out. So if you want to see, I feel like this is crooked. This is crooked. So if you want to see that video, I will link that, which is more like initially finding out that my baby was dead, or they like to say not viable, but dead. But this video is more about the actual process of having a miscarriage, because I found that it was really helpful before I actually had the miscarriage, to go on and like hear about people's experiences. And there weren't too many people who actually talked about like the process of what it is like to have a miscarriage, what it feels like and what happens. So just so you know, if you're like friends and family, or you get squeamish easily, this video is going to have a lot of TMI descriptive words and stuff in it. So you might want to click off. But if there's anyone out there who knows that their baby is not viable and is waiting to have a miscarriage, or thinks they're having a miscarriage, you've started bleeding, I'm gonna start crying, you've started having spotting and you're worried, I hope that this video is helpful. So I'm just gonna give you all the information I have, and I'm probably gonna look down because it's about, it's Monday. No, it's not Monday today. What's today? Today is Wednesday. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's been like almost a week since I started the miscarriage. So I am gonna look down and kind of just consult my notes and make sure I give you guys all the information that I want to share, so I don't forget anything. So if you see me looking down, that's why. My dog might bark here. Mondo, go lay down. Hey, go lay down. Okay, so the first thing, I'm just gonna give you a little background in case you didn't watch my previous video. So on a Monday, I was 10 weeks pregnant, and I woke up in the morning and I had some clotting. I don't know what I'm saying. And I had some spotting. And it was just, like darker blood, which means old blood. I wasn't too worried, but I did text my midwife because she's just awesome. She's so responsive. And so I just wanted to just run it by her to see what she thought about it. And she lives in my neighborhood, and she was driving nearby. So she was like, I'm gonna come over right away. She did a Doppler to try and find baby's heartbeat. She did say that like at 10 weeks, it's kind of hard to find their heartbeat because they're so small with a Doppler. So like not to be worried if we didn't find it, but she was trying to reassure me. Obviously they didn't find the heartbeat. And so I had an ultrasound the following day, and that's when I found out that the baby was no longer viable. They like to say no longer viable. And it was measuring smaller than 10 weeks. So it was measuring at like 7.5 weeks, the size of it, and it didn't have a heartbeat. So my spotting had like continued to get more and more red and heavier throughout that entire time. So all through Monday, and Monday night before I had the ultrasound, that night I had like 2 small clots, but they were like red clots. And I've yet to hear a story of someone who's had clots like that who hasn't had a miscarriage. I don't want to discourage anyone who still has hope, because I still had a little bit of hope at that point, but that really discouraged me. I mean, there are some things that can happen, like a subchorionic hemorrhage, which you can read about, but it's like where the lining separates a little bit, and so like there is some blood that passes, but your baby can be just fine. So those are like the things that I was grasping at. I was like, okay, maybe that's what this is. Like maybe that's why I passed a couple of clots, but in my heart, in my heart, I kind of knew. So, and I also, like, my nausea had subsided a bit and my breasts weren't as sore as they had been. So I kind of knew. And then, so then, like I said, on Tuesday, I had the ultrasound and my bleeding had just kind of continued. It wasn't a lot yet. Like, it was still spotting. And so I was like, okay, at that point on Tuesday, I knew that my baby was dead inside of me, but like I wasn't starting like to have my miscarriage yet. Like my midwife had told me that miscarriage was like labor, like a mini version of labor, obviously not as intense or anything, but that the contractions would be rhythmic and timetable, and they would increase. They would get longer and stronger and closer together. And so I was like waiting for that to happen. She said there would be lots of bleeding and tissue passing. And I read online that at this stage, at 10 weeks, the tissue that passed would look, again, guys, TMI, dark red, shiny, kind of like liver. It's gross, but so I was waiting for that to happen. And she said that there are like 3 options for having a miscarriage. You can do it naturally, wait for it to happen naturally. You can get a pill that will like increase your contractions. I think she called it Cytotec. I'm sure there's other brands and stuff too, but that's what she mentioned to me. They just make your contractions stronger. And then the third option is having a D&C, which is a dilation and curettage, which is like a procedure where they go in and they scrape out anything that's in there. I can't even think about that. So I chose to do it naturally. That's usually my tendency, is to let my body do what it needs to do. She did warn me that if I bled for excessively for days, like 3 or more days, that you're risking anemia and blood loss. And so you probably, like, she recommended that if it takes more than like 3 days, that I should go in and be seen by a provider and just be medically managed. So let's see. The other things that you can do that she mentioned was acupuncture. If you're like, I don't know who's watching, but if you're someone who's watching who knows that your baby's gone, knows your baby's dead, who's had a ultrasound, and and you're waiting for your miscarriage to start, but you want to do it naturally, she said acupuncture can help. I don't know if you can find an acupuncturist who like does that, but herbs, my friend mentioned that she took some like natural herbs. I'm waiting for her to respond to me to tell me which ones. But you can look it up online, and obviously that pill will get it going. She did say, like, if it takes a really long time and you're waiting for it to happen, don't put anything in your vagina, like no sex, no tampons, just to prevent infection, because that's the other risk, like increased blood loss. And then if it takes too long, the risk of infection is what happens. Like once it takes a really long time, you're risking infection. She did also mention that if you haven't started bleeding yet, and like you just went and had a normal ultrasound and found out that your baby's heart wasn't beating anymore, but you hadn't started bleeding yet, that it can take like up to a month for the miscarriage to happen naturally, which is a really long time. And like if my baby was 7.5 weeks big, large, like who knows, did it die at 7.5 weeks, or was it just growing really slowly and it died Monday when I started bleeding? Like, I don't know, but conceivably it could have died at 7.5 weeks, and I didn't know. And so like it took that long for the miscarriage to happen, but it did happen naturally, and I didn't get an infection and everything. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're someone who likes to get this done naturally and like doesn't want to take a pill or doesn't want to have a D&C, like give yourself some time, even though it's really hard to wait. I don't know if I could have waited that long, but just giving you the information. Okay, and then she said like once like everything passes, you'll start to feel better, and she said then you pass into postpartum, which this word made me reel, like postpartum. What? Because I've had 2 kids, so I do know like what it's like to be postpartum. And it was just so weird that those two are like in the medical world equated to each other. Like, oof. Okay, I'm not gonna cry. So then you become postpartum, and you can still bleed, but kind of like period bleeding for like several weeks afterwards. And she said that probably one of the reasons is because there's no breastfeeding to help your uterus shrink back down. So it takes longer for that to happen and for everything to flush out. Let me make sure I've mentioned everything I wanted to mention so far at this point. Yes. Okay. So then, as I mentioned, Monday started spotting, Tuesday got the ultrasound, Wednesday, like still just spotting. And I'm at this point on Wednesday, I'm like that was a hard part for me, because it was like I wasn't miscarrying yet, but I was like, should I stay home because I might start miscarrying? Like, I don't know when this is going to happen. Is it going to happen in 2 weeks? Like, is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to happen right now? Like, that was difficult for me to figure out, like, do I need to just act? Do I need to do something? But I asked my midwife, and she said it's okay to wait. Like I mentioned, just take those precautions, nothing in the vagina. And so I just waited, and I'm glad I did, because Thursday, the following day at like noon, I started feeling more cramping, and the bleeding became more intense. There was actually like gushes of blood. I didn't really experience the increased like labor, I did have lots of cramping, but it wasn't like getting longer and stronger and closer together, like distinctly, like I could really track that. So just keep that in mind. Like, I didn't notice that at all. I just would like contract and cramp, and I would have a gush of blood, and then I would feel fine for a little while. I also noticed that like when I was up and moving around, more would pass, and then when I relaxed, it would kind of stop. So when Thursday, when it first started, I had that gush of blood, and then my bottom got really sore, like postpartum sore. Like if you've had a baby, down there gets really, really sore afterwards. And so I felt that, and my midwife said that was probably like that feeling of pressure and fullness in the uterus. So the first bit of tissue that passed, guys, I'm sorry, this, like I said, so much TMI right now, but the first tissue that I passed was like this big, and I really thought that was like gonna be it. Like that was all of it, because it was a big, shiny and red and smooth tissue. And I was like thinking that the baby was in there and that was it, but that was just the beginning, guys. There was so much more blood, so much gushing blood, and so many of those pieces of tissue, different sizes, but they would just clop out of me. Like, I'm sorry, that's so gross. But so I forgot to mention, but on Tuesday or Wednesday, I ordered a Walmart delivery order, and I got Depends, like the full-on underwear that you would get for postpartum. I got Depends, and I also got gigantic pads. And so I was just wearing these Depends and pads the entire time, and that was really helpful because like I have 2 kids, and Jason was actually working on Thursday when I started having my miscarriage, so I was alone for a little bit of it. So I had to like be making them lunch and doing things. And so it was really helpful to be able to like not have to sit on the toilet. I would have to run to the toilet because it was definitely like a lot for one of those pads to handle when it did gush, but I would recommend getting some Depends for sure. let's see. So around that lasted from like noon to like 6 p.m. And then I felt much better. And then my mom got there around 5 p.m. that day. So I wonder if like when she got there, I sat down and I started to rest. And that's when like everything subsided. And I started to feel better. And I thought, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe it's done. The next day, my husband was home on Friday, and 8 a.m. it started again. It was way more intense the following day on Friday. Let's see. Oh, and again, like I noticed that correlation between moving up and moving and resting. And so I texted my midwife and I was like, I feel really tired, and I was feeling a bit lightheaded at this point, probably from all the blood loss. And I was like, shoot, should I be resting my body right now and like letting it happen that way? Or should I be up and moving around and like encouraging it to continue? And she said, you know, if I feel up to it, staying up and moving and like encouraging it to continue, because you don't want it to stop with like things still in there. You want to make sure everything comes out. There's actually a term, like a partial miscarriage is a term for when you had a miscarriage and you think everything's come out, but there's still some stuff left up in there. And that's when you might need a D&C, probably the pill you would start with, and then a D&C if you couldn't get it all out. But so I stayed up and moving around, and Friday, so it started at 8 a.m. I passed a lot more tissue, the same type of tissue. 11:30, right in the middle of that, I passed what I'm sure was the placenta. It was different from the rest of the tissue that was passing. It was like, if you've ever had a baby, you know what the placenta looks like. You can look it up online. It was harder, like it was thicker. I could feel it had more substance to it, and it's like kind of veiny, and it had like more white tissue in there. So anyway, I passed the placenta, and I think I'm trying to remember what happened. And that was kind of it. Like, I think I passed a little more of the placenta, but at that point, like 11:30, and then a few more things until 1, and then 1, I was kind of like, okay, finally, there were a few more gushes of blood, but not much more tissue coming out at that point. So then I would say I was pretty much done from that point on. My bleeding continued on Saturday and Sunday, but like it wasn't gushing anymore. It was still a lot, but it was like not like gushing out of me. I know it's so gross. Sorry, guys. And I had small clots, but no more tissue. And then Monday and Tuesday, today's Wednesday, Monday and Tuesday, it subsided even more, and I had headaches the last 3 days. I think that's probably like my hormones going down, like decreasing hormones. That's what the headaches are from. There's no baby inside me anymore, so I've been taking Advil to help with that. Yes. So, and then my midwife said the postpartum bleeding, like I said, can last for several weeks or less. It just depends on you. I've had it subsided so much yesterday and today, like I'm barely bleeding anymore. My midwife did say that after I'm completely done bleeding, wait an entire week and then take a pregnancy test. And that pregnancy test should be negative. And that negative pregnancy test is indicative that you're done, that there's nothing missed inside there. So it's not like a partial miscarriage. You've fully miscarried. Everything's cleared out of your uterus. Because I asked her, I was like, do I need to get an ultrasound just to make sure? And she was like, no, as long as it's a negative pregnancy test, that's your assurance. So I took a pregnancy test the last 3 days, and they've been so strongly pregnant line, like that second line has been really strong. So I don't know why I'm taking them. I thought I would just take them and like see the line slowly disappear. I saw one woman did that and it made her feel better. But I think I'm gonna wait a week and do that. I think that's it, you guys. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I wanted to say. Definitely just make sure you get with your healthcare provider. Like this is just my experience. Obviously you need to like talk to your midwife, talk to your OB, whoever you're working with. But I think the most important thing is to just make sure when your miscarriage is over, like that you had a full miscarriage and that you're not like leaving anything behind in there, because that's when you can get an infection. I'm starting to feel mentally better too. I feel like doing these videos has really helped a lot, because like family and friends are really supportive and they love me and they want me to feel better. But I feel like when you have sad news, like people don't want to ask you questions about it because they don't want to trigger you to be even more sad, right? So then it doesn't get talked about as much, like, because I mean, I guess I could just volunteer the information and like they would listen, I'm sure, but like people tend to want to change the subject. They want to say sorry and we're here for you, but then like they don't like inquire, you know. They're not like, well, how did your miscarriage go? Like, what was it like, you know? So it's been really therapeutic to be able to make these videos and talk to you guys out there in the YouTube world about this. I feel like I'm coming to terms with it. I feel like if this was my first baby, like if I miscarried on my first try, like before I had any babies, then my emotions would be so different. So give yourself time. Like if you've miscarried and like you've never had a baby before, you're probably questioning your fertility and like all of these things. But just give yourself time to like mentally heal. I have 2 healthy boys, so I'm feeling like so blessed, and we will try again. That's the other thing I wanted to tell you. My midwife said there's no reason to wait to try again. Like once we clear that I get that negative pregnancy test, that's my go ahead to try again. So she said they used to tell you to wait like up to 3 months after a miscarriage to try again, but what she said was like, why? What's the reason? And actually that extra progesterone in your body that's left over from that miscarriage actually can help your next pregnancy take and hold better. So she said there's no reason to wait, like unless mentally you need that time to wait, obviously, then you need to wait. But so I don't know when we're gonna try again. I definitely need some more time, and I obviously haven't had that negative pregnancy test yet to give me the go ahead, but we're definitely going to try again, and I'm gonna try to like not let this influence my anxiety level during the next pregnancy. I'm sure I will be a little bit more anxious just because I'm not gonna be able to help it, but I'm just so thankful that I have my boys, and anyone out there who's going through a miscarriage, I feel ya. You're gonna get through this, and I wish the best for you. I'm sure, I don't know what I'm sure of, but I'm here for you. And yeah, I think that's it, you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and be done now and try and get over this and let this go emotionally. And thank you so much for watching.